You know what drives doctors absolutely crazy? Meeting someone like Jan Kalment, who smoked cigarettes for over a century, drank wine daily, ate chocolate regularly, and lived to 122 years old. Or Emma Morano, who credited her longevity to eating raw eggs and staying single. These aren't isolated cases. They're part of a growing paradox that's making the medical establishment scratch their heads. While we're obsessing over keto diets, CrossFit routines, and the latest superfood trends, there are people breaking every single health rule in the book and living longer than anyone else on the planet. Today, we're diving into the real secrets behind extreme longevity. Secrets that have nothing to do with what you eat for breakfast, and everything to do with how you approach life itself. Let's start with a story that breaks every rule we've been taught about healthy living. Jeanne Calment didn't just smoke. She smoked for 96 years of her life. She didn't quit until she was 117. And even then, it wasn't for health reasons. She simply couldn't see well enough to light her cigarettes anymore. She lived 5 more years after quitting, dying at 122, as the oldest verified human being in history. But Jeanne isn't alone in defying medical logic. There's Friede Blom from South Africa, who smoked and drank for decades while living to 116. Or consider the centenarians of Sardinia, many of whom drink wine daily and have diets rich in saturated fats from sheep's milk and cheese. These aren't people who stumbled into longevity despite their habits. They're living proof that our understanding of what creates a long life is fundamentally incomplete. Here's what's driving researchers crazy. When they study these exceptional cases using conventional health metrics, the numbers don't add up. Jeanne Calment's cardiovascular system should have failed decades before her death. Her lung function should have been catastrophic. Her cellular damage from decades of smoking should have triggered cancer or emphysema. Yet none of that happened. Dr. Tom Perls, who runs the New England Centenarian study, admits that traditional risk factors only explain about 25% of longevity. That leaves 75% unexplained by everything we think we know about healthy living. The problem is that medical science has been laser-focused on what damages the body, while largely ignoring what protects it at a deeper level. Recent research is revealing something fascinating. Chronic stress and social isolation cause more cellular damage than moderate smoking or drinking. A landmark study from Brigham Young University found that loneliness increases your risk of premature death by 50%. That's equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Meanwhile, people with strong social connections had a 50% increased likelihood of survival, regardless of their other health habits. This doesn't mean smoking is good for you. It means that the factors we've been ignoring might be far more powerful than the ones we've been obsessing over. Jeanne Calment wasn't healthy because she smoked. She was healthy despite smoking because other aspects of her life created such a strong foundation for longevity that they overcame what should have been devastating physical damage. Think about the stress levels of someone who worries constantly about every health decision versus someone who enjoys their daily glass of wine without guilt. The chronic anxiety and perfectionism of modern health culture might be more damaging than the occasional unhealthy choice made with joy and social connection. This is where conventional medicine hits a wall. Doctors are trained to identify and treat disease, not to understand the mysterious factors that allow some people to transcend normal biological limitations. They can measure cholesterol levels and blood pressure, but they can't quantify the protective power of deep friendships, unshakable optimism, or having a reason to get up every morning. So if it's not about following every health rule perfectly, what is it about? The answer lies in understanding what these exceptional people have in common beyond their surprising habits. The breakthrough came when researchers started studying the blue zones, 5 regions around the world where people routinely live past 100. What they discovered wasn't a special diet or exercise routine. It was something far more fundamental. These centenarians were never alone. In Okinawa, Japan, they have a concept called moai, groups of friends who commit to each other for life. These aren't casual friendships or social media connections. We're talking about people who've shared meals, celebrations, and sorrows for 70 or 80 years. When researchers interviewed Okinawan centenarians, they didn't talk about their sweet potato diet or daily walks. They talked about their friends. Take Ushi Okushima, who lived to 107. Every morning, she'd meet the same 4 women she'd known since childhood. They'd exercise together, share gossip, and support each other through life's challenges. When one of them got sick, the others would take turns caring for her. When Ushi's husband died, her Moi helped her process the grief and find reasons to keep living. This wasn't just friendship, it was a survival system. The science behind this is staggering. Harvard's Grant study, which followed subjects for over 80 years, found that the quality of relationships was the strongest predictor of life satisfaction and longevity. Not career success, not wealth, not even physical health. Relationships. People with strong social connections had better immune function, lower rates of depression, and significantly longer lifespans. But here's what's shocking. Loneliness doesn't just make you sad. It literally rewrites your biology. When you're socially isolated, your body interprets it as a threat. Your immune system shifts into a defensive mode that increases inflammation and reduces your ability to fight off viruses. It's as if your cells are preparing for injury because they think you're in danger. Dr. John Cacioppo's research at the University of Chicago showed that lonely people have higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone that breaks down muscle tissue and suppresses immune function. Their sleep quality deteriorates, their blood pressure rises, and their cognitive function declines faster. Loneliness literally ages you at the cellular level. Now contrast that with the centenarians of Sardinia, Italy. These aren't people living in isolation, counting calories and measuring their steps. They're gathering for long meals with extended family, arguing passionately about politics, and maintaining friendships that span generations. Their social connections aren't just emotional support, they're biological protection. Maria Mellis lived to 108 in a Sardinian village where she knew every neighbor's name. She'd spend hours each day in conversation, sharing stories, offering advice, and receiving care from her community. When researchers studied her blood work, they found remarkably low levels of inflammatory markers. Despite a diet rich in cheese and wine, her social connections were literally keeping her cells young. The difference between having friends and having meaningful relationships is crucial here. Modern society offers us hundreds of social media connections, but very few deep bonds. We have acquaintances, not allies. We have networks, not families. The centenarians aren't just socially active. They're emotionally invested in other people's lives and know that others are invested in theirs. This creates what researchers call social resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks because you're not facing them alone. When a centenarian loses a spouse, their community rallies around them. When they face health challenges, they have people who care about their recovery. This isn't just emotional comfort. It's biological armor that protects against the kind of chronic stress that kills. But social connection is just one piece of the puzzle. There's another factor that's even more powerful in determining who lives past 100. There's a Japanese concept called ikigai. That translates roughly to reason for being. It's the thing that gets you out of bed each morning. The sense that your life has meaning and direction. For centenarians, ikigai isn't some grand philosophical concept. It's often beautifully simple and deeply personal. Jiroman Kimura, who lived to 116, found his ikigai in his daily routine of tending a small vegetable garden and reading the newspaper cover to cover. Every morning, he'd wake up excited to check on his plants and catch up on world events. When asked about his longevity secret, he didn't mention diet or exercise. He said he always had something to look forward to the next day. This isn't coincidence, it's biology. When you have a strong sense of purpose, your body produces different hormones and neurotransmitters. Your brain releases more dopamine and serotonin, which reduce inflammation and boost immune function. People with high levels of ikigai show lower rates of dementia, heart disease, and stroke. Purpose literally rewires your nervous system for survival. Dr. Patricia Boyle's research at Rush University followed over 900 older adults for 7 years. Those with the highest sense of purpose were 2.4 times more likely to remain free of Alzheimer's disease, even when their brains showed physical signs of dementia during autopsy. People with strong purpose had maintained their cognitive abilities while alive. Their sense of meaning was protecting their minds from deterioration. But here's what makes centenarians different from the rest of us. Their mental resilience isn't built on avoiding problems. It's built on accepting them. Emma Morano lived through 2 world wars, the Spanish flu pandemic, and the death of her only child. She could have become bitter or withdrawn. Instead, she developed what psychologists call adaptive coping, the ability to find meaning in suffering and bounce back from tragedy. When researchers study centenarians' personalities, they find something remarkable. These aren't people who lived easy lives. They're people who learned to thrive despite difficult circumstances. They developed what's called stress inoculation, repeated exposure to manageable challenges that built their psychological immune system. Susanna Mushat Jones lived to 116, despite growing up in extreme poverty in Alabama during the Jim Crow era. She worked as a housekeeper for wealthy families, never married, and faced constant discrimination. Yet, people who knew her described her as eternally optimistic and quick to laugh. She'd say, "I never worry about anything. Worrying doesn't help anything." No, this wasn't denial. It was wisdom. The stress-longevity connection that doctors are just beginning to understand is this. It's not stress itself that kills you. It's your response to stress. Centenarians have mastered what researchers call emotional regulation. They feel the same disappointments and fears as everyone else, but they don't let those emotions hijack their biology. Modern neuroscience shows us why this matters so much. Chronic worry and anxiety flood your system with cortisol, which breaks down muscle tissue, suppresses immune function, and accelerates cellular aging. People who ruminate about problems show faster telomere shortening, literal aging at the DNA level. Meanwhile, those who practice acceptance and maintain optimism preserve their cellular youth. Jeanne Calment faced the death of her husband, a daughter, and grandson. She could have spent her final decades consumed by grief. Instead, she chose to focus on small daily pleasures. Her afternoon port, conversations with visitors, and the satisfaction of outliving everyone who ever doubted her. She understood intuitively what science is now proving. Having something to live for matters more than perfect nutrition or flawless health habits. The practical steps to develop this kind of unshakable mental resilience start with identifying your own ikigai. It doesn't have to be world-changing. It just has to be meaningful to you. Maybe it's watching your grandchildren grow up, mastering a craft, or simply being the person others can count on. The key is having something that makes tomorrow worth experiencing. These mental factors create the foundation for extreme longevity. But there's one more crucial element that ties everything together. Here's the paradox that modern health culture refuses to acknowledge. While we're downloading apps to track our macros, buying expensive supplements, and constantly optimizing our routines, centenarians are living simply and consistently. They're not biohacking their way to longevity. They're finding it through moderation and routine. Consider the daily life of Violet Brown, who lived to 117 in Jamaica. She woke up at the same time every morning, ate the same simple breakfast of porridge and fruit, spent time with family, and went to bed early. No meal planning apps, no fitness trackers, no complicated protocols, just consistent, sustainable habits, repeated for over a century. The centenarians of Icaria, Greece, follow what researchers call the everything in moderation principle. They drink wine, but not to excess. They eat meat, but not every day. They work, but they also nap. They socialize, but they also enjoy solitude. This isn't indecision, it's wisdom. They understand that extremes in any direction create stress on the body. Meanwhile, we're cycling through elimination diets, extreme workout programs, and rigid health protocols that we abandon after a few months. We treat our bodies like machines that need constant optimization, instead of living systems that thrive on gentle consistency. The irony is that our pursuit of perfect health might be preventing us from achieving actual longevity. Research from the Danish twin study shows that consistency beats perfection every time. People who maintain moderate habits for decades outlive those who alternated between periods of strict health regimens and complete abandonment. Your body adapts to what you do regularly, not what you do perfectly. Centenarians have mastered what psychologists call satisficing, choosing the good enough option instead of endlessly searching for the perfect one. They find a way of eating that works for them and stick with it. They find physical activities they enjoy and do them regularly. They don't waste mental energy, constantly second-guessing their choices. This simplicity extends to their relationship with their own mortality. While we're obsessed with anti-aging and life extension, centenarians accept aging as natural. They focus on living well today, rather than optimizing for some theoretical future. This acceptance reduces the chronic stress that comes from fighting against natural processes. The compound effect of simple habits over decades is more powerful than any single intervention. Walking daily for 80 years trumps doing CrossFit for 2 years. Eating home-cooked meals consistently beats following the perfect diet sporadically. Having regular sleep patterns matters more than optimizing sleep technology. The practical application is liberating. Stop trying to hack your way to health and start building sustainable routines. Choose simple habits you can maintain for years, not months. Find your own version of moderation that feels natural, not forced. The goal isn't to live like a centenarian from another culture. It's to apply their principle of sustainable simplicity to your own life. The real secret isn't breaking health rules, but understanding what truly matters for longevity. Focus on building deep relationships, finding your purpose, and maintaining simple, consistent habits, rather than chasing perfect nutrition or exercise routines. Your next step: choose one centenarian principle to implement this week, whether that's strengthening a friendship or simplifying your daily routine. Subscribe for more insights that challenge conventional health wisdom.